Hey everybody, it's Chris Bumber here. I'm at the Sundance Film Festival. I just saw a screening of a movie that was pretty insane that I wasn't expecting called The Ugly Stepsister, which is like the body horror version of Cinderella that I never knew I wanted, but boy, did I have a good time watching this movie. It carries on that body horror tradition that started with David Cronenberg and has since been revived by The Substance. And I have a feeling that when IFC and Shudder put this one out, it's going to turn into a real cult hit. So let me tell you all about it. So Elvira is one of the ugly stepsisters from the Cinderella story, and she has one all-consuming obsession. She wants to marry the handsome prince of her kingdom and live happily ever after. However, she's got a really unruly head of hair, some really ugly braces, and, well, she doesn't live up to the ideal of beauty in her kingdom, and nobody lets her forget it. However, her gorgeous stepsister is ethereal in her beauty, and everybody thinks she's the hottest woman in the kingdom, and she seems fated to potentially wed the prince, which sticks in Elvira's craw a little bit. So she undergoes some pretty grotesque body horror transformations to turn into, what her kingdom thinks is the ideal of beauty, and boy, the result is really, really disgusting, but a lot of fun. So it's safe to say that every version that we've gotten of Cinderella so far has in some ways kind of been the same. I mean, there's that Disney version, of course, then there's the reimagining that they did with Lily James, then there's even the one that starred Brandy back in the 90s. I mean, they've always been kind of fluffy. The only one that we got that was somewhat grounded was Ever After starring Drew Barrymore, but this is something completely different. In fact, if I was going to compare it to anything, I'd say it was a little bit like this great little cable movie that they did back in the 90s, Snow White, A Tale of Terror, starring Sigourney Weaver as the wicked stepmother, which really not enough people have seen, and Neil Jordan's Company of Wolves. That's kind of what you're getting with The Ugly Stepsister. So the director, Emily Blitchfield, said that she was inspired by the Brothers Grimm version of the story, which memorably ended with a bunch of the stepsisters hacking off their toes in order to fit into Cinderella's slipper. That's the kind of movie that we're dealing with here, folks, but it goes a lot more extreme than that. So The Ugly Stepsister is making its world premiere here in Park City in the midnight section, and it proved to be a raucous success at its screening, with people cheering and yelping and covering their eyes in disgust at some of the insane grand guignol moments that we see in the film, which include things like tapeworms, surgically having eyelashes, kind of sewn onto your eyelids while the plastic surgeon is doing a lot of cocaine. Sounds like a good idea, right?
You're absolutely right.
And of course, there's nose jobs, the kind that you get in medieval times, which we're not talking Nick Tuck here, guys. We're talking about something a little bit different. So the movie stars Lee Myron as Elvira, who's the titular ugly stepsister, although I have to say she's not particularly ugly. In fact, she's quite a striking looking woman. When the movie starts, Elvira's mother is married into a wealthy family whose patriarch immediately dies. As it turns out, he was penniless, so Rebecca hatches a plan to transform her oddball daughter, who everyone mocks as ugly, into the physically perfect specimen who she thinks could marry into wealth. And she makes Thea-Sophie Loch Ness's ethereal but cruel Agnes, who's the movie's version of Cinderella, into a servant, lest she overshadow her daughter. So Lee Myron delivers a fantastic performance as Elvira, who's obsessive and unhinged right from the get-go, and far from an unwilling participant in her own transformation. She willingly submits to some of the movie's most gruesome moments and goes even further than that. Some of the worst ideas in this film come from her, and one of the things that's cool about The Ugly Stepsister is that it's a lot like The Substance, in which nobody is entirely sympathetic. Everybody's kind of crazy in this movie, which I like. I think if you're going to do this kind of movie, just make everybody insane. It adds to the heightened vibe. So technically, this Norwegian language film is impeccable, with gorgeous photography by Marcel Ziskind, who also shot Michael Winterbottom's The Killer Inside Me, which I also saw at Sundance, and almost the crowd for that movie at the end, I thought they wanted to kill Michael Winterbottom, the director. People were so upset about it. I digress. He also shot Viggo Mortensen's The Dead Don't Hurt, and I especially loved the synth-based soundtrack in this movie by composer Kara and Norwegian artist Vilde Tov, which Blitchfield in the press notes says was inspired by 70s genre soundtracks by Goblin, Roy Bod, and Francis Lai, albeit with a contemporary twist. So one might reasonably ask whether or not the world needs yet another version of Cinderella. Truth be told, if they were going to do it in the classic way, we really don't. We've gotten Cinderella, we've gotten enough versions of it, but you've never seen a Cinderella movie like this. I mean, The Ugly Stepsister, I really hope it gets a good theatrical release because it's such a blast to watch with a crowd. It's such a great midnight movie. It reminded me a little bit of Ken Russell's The Devils, and if you ever saw that movie, you know just how demented we're talking here. I had such a good time with this movie. I give it a very strong 8 out of 10, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. One thing's for sure, even if it doesn't get a massive theatrical release, I think it's going to turn into a huge hit on Shudder. It's going to be one of those streaming movies that everybody's talking about. It really is one to watch out for, so keep your eyes peeled. This one is a winner.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.